The Trap Set will always be available for free, but we rely on donations from our listeners. Please visit our website at thetrapset.net and click Donate. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, and if you enjoy what you hear, give us a review.
This is Joe Wong. Welcome to The Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. On April 12th, I hosted a live panel at the Gathering Space at KEXP in Seattle. The guests included Matt Cameron of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, Ruby Dunphy of Thunderpussy, Tendai Maraire of Shabazz Palaces, and Jason McGerr of Death Cab for Cutie. I started the conversation by asking Jason why Seattle has historically attracted and fostered a disproportionately high amount of musical talent.
You know, I think that there's always been something about this community that has made being a musician or a career in music feasible just by example. Like this gentleman here at the end of the row, Matt Cameron and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Nirvana. I mean, it's redundant to even talk about it here because you all know this already, but growing up in Bellingham as a kid, it was just down the street. It was just down the road, right? Like, oh, you can be a musician, you can be in a band, and you can actually make a living, and you can tour, and you can be on MTV, and you can be on the radio. Great, I'll do that. I'm only 12, but it seems like it's possible. So, I mean, I think that for me, that's what made this area feasible and like a place that I could move to and live and work. And I started out down here in drum shops and just got to know the musicians in the community, but everyone was also really honest, really, helpful. There was never any sort of competition that I picked up on. It wasn't like a dog-eat-dog world. And also, like I said, it was affordable. And for me, being a kid, 19 years old, when I found out that there was a place for rent for $187.50 in a house in Wallingford, I was there. I was totally in. And I mean, I hope that, it is still feasible for people because it is more expensive, obviously, than it was. But to me, that, this started, this sort of culture of music doesn't really go back that far. I mean, there's been people here for a long time making great music. But it wasn't like moving to LA. It wasn't like moving to New York. It wasn't like moving to San Francisco. So, and practice spaces were cheap. So I think that the musicianship really developed because people didn't have to spend as many hours working as they could practicing, getting to know people, hanging out, and really building the community.
Tendai, your family is from Zimbabwe originally, correct?
Yes.
And what brought you here?
I was born here. What brought my father here was he was an ethnomusicologist at the University of Washington. And it was music, it was fate, really. Some guy went to a musical in Dangamvura, where I'm from, real far out in the country, like Walla Walla. And he just happened to be there. His name's Robert Kaufman. He happened to go to a Christmas show he heard about there, so he wanted to go see the students. And when the show was over, he went to ask the teacher, like, would you be interested in coming to America, and teaching your culture, and sharing it, and in exchange we'll give you an honorary doctorate after so much time. And the guy was like, I'm not doing it. It's the student over there. And so he promised my dad he'd come back and get him, and he did. And here I am. So, yeah.
How did you benefit from being the son of an ethnomusicologist?
Well, let me say this. It's tough because he was wearing so many hats. He was representing a country that the government knew he was there. Like when Robert Mugabe came and got planes from Boeing, like my dad made sure, okay, now we got to get all the kids together and go shake Mugabe's hand, you know what I'm saying? But when it was like come to a basketball game or something, no. But when it was, because we didn't realize he's writing this syllabus, which I didn't realize this till a couple years ago. He was writing the syllabus on how to play the mbira. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, he was working. So, and I get it now, and I think we all get it. You're on the road so much, you're trying to uphold and honor your culture and live up to that. So it was different, you know what I'm saying? Because the fatherhood wasn't there, but then I recognized the responsibility. So I'm like, he did the best he could. So, yeah.
In retrospect,
yeah.
I've interviewed lots of folks that come from a musical background, and it seems like you can go one of two ways. Either that's the last thing that you want to do because that's what your parents do, and you kind of see the struggles that they go through, or you go into it. So how did you kind of forge your own relationship with music independent of your family?
For me, excuse me, music is like, I don't remember when I was potty trained.
Right.
The story goes, I was 18 months. My mom and dad are teaching the class. I hop up and start drumming the drums, routine that they're doing. And they're just like, oh, shoot, put this kid on stage. And that was it, So.
Did you ever resent that?
For a minute I did. When there comes a point when you realize, you're like, oh, they're here to see me. And I'm not getting paid. You know what I'm saying? And I'm being asked to skip school, and I'm being, And I'm like, wait a minute, oh, don't play football. I'm like, no, I'm never gonna make it to the NFL. I'm gonna play football, and then I'll do the music. So there was a little bit of resentment for a second, and then my father, weirdly enough, he hated classical music, so he said. So he didn't want me to play the violin, but I didn't recognize the impact that Western music had on Zimbabwean music and how they were trying to take out the mbita and the drums. My dad was instrumental in bringing the drum just back to Zimbabwean music, into the church. You see what I'm saying?
You're talking about during colonial times,
yes.
They were trying to strip the culture away.
They were stripping the culture, so I didn't realize that, so I wanted to play the violin, so I played the violin, And then like 10 years later, this guy puts out an album with the Kronos Quartet, so I don't know. I don't get it, so yeah.
Ruby, you're from Chicago originally, right?
Yeah.
And what brought you to Seattle?
Man, I knew I'd get asked this question, and I still didn't prepare a good answer. So I have a lot of different reasons I came to Seattle. First, I just always had a draw to Seattle Olympia because I was ridiculously into Riot Girl and Nirvana. So I was like, okay, I know that's not still happening, but I know that something was left from that, right? So basically I just typed in Seattle music when I was a junior in high school on my phone, and the first thing that came up was KEXP, and for 2 years straight I watched KEXP every day in French class, and I'm like, damn, I need to come visit. And I knew that I was gonna go to college for either jazz or classical. I'm pursuing jazz now. And I came to Cornish, and I was like, oh man, there's a lot happening here that's not happening in other cities, which other cities I visited, the jazz program was jazz. The classical program was classical. And that's what you're gonna do. And then I came to Seattle, and it's just like, there's dancers, and there's graphic designers, and there's filmmakers, and they all want a piece of you, right? Everyone wants a piece of somebody here. So I think to answer your original question, that's one of the core reasons why drummers thrive in Seattle is because, man, everyone wants a drummer, right? Everyone wants a drummer. It's the most, it can just be involved in any project so easily. And then after Birdman came out, it's like every filmmaker wants you, right? Yeah. Can you play
just don't hit the head, hit the rim. Yeah.
Tony Statcher, he does that thing with the cymbal where it doesn't sound like a cymbal. No, okay. So, yeah, and I think Seattle too. It's much quieter than Chicago. So, most drummers, not all drummers, but most drummers like to be really loud, and people in a quiet space they want something loud. They want something to pop out. So I think that's a major reason. People just love hearing drums, and drummers, when they like being heard, will drum more.
Matt, you're a native of San Diego.
Correct.
Why did you leave sunny Southern California to come to Seattle?
1983 is when I moved up here. It was not well thought out at all. I had played in a band called Fault Line with a buddy of mine named Glenn Slater, who he's from Seattle. We played together I was right out of high school. So I was, basically playing cover bands and that type of racket. And then this one band, Fault Line, they wrote original tunes. and I thought that was kind of cool. It's like felt like that was a fun thing to pursue. And I worked really well with this guy Glenn. So when he moved up here, he just like called me out of the blue and recommended I just come up for a visit and join his band. So I kind of came up for a gig, but yeah. So it was super goofy, super innocent, but yeah, I basically came up here for music.
Do you think of it as fate at this point, like in retrospect?
Well, geez, I mean, I just think about like all of us kind of together at that time in the 80s, mid to late 80s. There was just a lot of super talented people here at that one time. So I guess we found each other, so that was probably the fate aspect of it all. But we were just kind of making it up as we went along.
Do you still kind of make decisions that way by impulse?
Well, I think it sort of has to feel like the right decision. So I guess that is the impulse part of it, But I think decisions out a lot more than I used to.
Why? Because you're responsible for other people now?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I got a lot more responsibilities in my life, and I love it. But yeah, back in the day, man, it's just like full throttle. Let's try it, And that was kind of the spirit around here, I guess, at that time. We're just kind of making it up as we went along, and there was luckily some places that we could all play and hang out, and so it all came about just through us playing around town. But I think what sort of I'm known for with Soundgarden and all those bands, it's like we were definitely part of a small part of a bigger kind of movement and generation. Yeah. So I think we always felt really we always knew that was part of our whole thing, like we were definitely part of something bigger.
Did it feel like that, like even in the beginning?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
Why do you play drums now? What are your intentions? No, I'm asking a serious question. I'm going to ask everybody this too, but has the reason changed? Has the feeling changed?
No. It's like I want that feeling. It's like I want that sort of like mind body sort of thing happening all at once. And it's like we don't always. I mean, we're all live drummers. We play gigs all the time. And from doing that, like you don't always get that sort of mind-body continuum going, but when it hits and when it's right, that's what you're going for.
Do you feel like you have any control over when that mind-body continuum occurs?
No, I don't. I mean, when it hits at a certain level, then you really don't have any control of that. So, I mean, that's kind of always been the thing, but it's like, some nights you're just tired or,
Yeah, but some of those nights it just happens anyways.
And then some of the nights,
some nights you feel like you're on fire, and then you show up.
Have a flu on tour, and you go play a show, and you don't remember the show, but everyone's like, man, that was a good show.
So how much of it is for yourself, and how much of it is for other people at this point?
Well, I mean, it's certainly like there's more responsibilities with my gig now, much like, my personal life. So I think we definitely try to, think in those terms as well. But we want to, as a musician, I always want to surprise myself, and I want to do that next thing that is inspiring me to keep going, I think that's what we're all kind of in it for, is that next sort of thing, that next puzzle piece in our musical lives,
Ruby, why do you play?
I don't have a driver's license. I have no other skill than to play drums.
Me too. Skillless.
It's totally skillless. It's not really a choice for me at this point.
You could develop other skills.
Don't tell my manager that. I have trouble with this word, but it's really has become my identity.
When do you feel like it became your identity?
Probably when I was like 16. I was like, I was playing a show 3 times a week in like disgusting basements, and then I would like go to jazz school on Saturdays from like 10 to 5, and then I would go to like a classical class on Sundays, and then I went to a school called Shy Arts, which is Chicago's first and only public arts high school, and that was an 8 to 5 day, which is nonstop training, and that came to a certain point where I couldn't think about anything except drums or percussion or whatever it was at the time.
Did it become any more or less enjoyable once you decided to dedicate yourself to it at that level?
It became more enjoyable because it's just like, this is gonna be my life. So every choice I make, even un-music related, is gonna contribute to this thing that I know I have to do, you know? So it's like no stress, just gonna drum, and then someone's gonna be like, keep on drumming, and I'll be like, let's do it.
Right. The stress component maybe gets reduced once you make that choice, once you take that leap.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. It's just huge weight lifted off your shoulders when you just know you're gonna be doing something the rest of your life.
Tendai, why do you play music?
I can't live without it, you know. I'll say the drumming thing, like I really started being more serious with it when I met Ish. I kind of was like giving up on music and like, this industry's terrible, you know. I didn't feel like there was music, hip-hop wise, that was growing. I felt like it was becoming a repetitive game of, look at me, I have on the same thing as you, we're cool. You know what I'm saying? Right. And when I met him, I didn't think I could find someone who would actually understand. There used to be a club named Larry's. There's a guy named John Baptiste. John Baptiste had another club night that was a reggae night. I was walking with my wife into the reggae club, and I'm like, oh, there goes Ish, you know? And I'm like, oh, what's up, man? My name's Tendai. And I don't know if you know him. He's just like, yeah, man, I know. I was like, oh, okay, cool, man. And I was like, yeah, man, well, yeah, let's get on some music. I don't do music anymore. I was like, what? You were just in the studio I was in last week. So I was like, oh, no, let it go. Long story short, his girlfriend was friends with my wife. And we didn't even know this time we lived next to each other, right on 12th. And what is it? Somewhere in Capitol Hill, I forgot. But anyways, that's how I met him, you know. And then he was making music every night. She was like, he makes music every night. What's he talking about? You know what I'm saying? I was like, I understand. So we just ended up making music. And he gave me more confidence to be more into my music and culture because I was secretly doing it. But like, you're right. People can't accept this, you know. So
why did you feel like they couldn't?
Because I felt like I tried 1,000,000 times, you know. I just kept trying, and even back home, like it took them a minute to get into Shabazz Palaces. They were like, man, why don't you play in beta? I'm like, the song has an in beta in it. That's how I'm playing it, you know what I'm saying? So it was just discouraging. But music was in a different place, you know. The iTunes wasn't there, you know what I'm saying, as prominent as it is now. So there really wasn't an avenue for people to get into it, so.
When you were considering giving it all up, what shape was your life going to take? Did you have another plan?
No, I don't have a plan. I don't practice. I just go. I mean,
so it's a matter of trusting your instincts.
Yes.
Did you have to learn how to do that?
I didn't know I was doing it. You know, and like I said, when I started. You know, Ish is like a philosophizer. He reads a lot and he analyzes things. So instead of just saying like, you know, you should try this, he's just like, no, that's amazing. You don't practice. You trust your instinct. You know, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, I do. But I just never knew that because I grew up around the music. You know, so I'm more into it now. And like he said, like now I do it because when we get on stage, if you've ever seen us, like 40% of the show, we just make this stuff up. You know what I'm saying? It's just improv. We're right there. And then you just hit these zones and you hit these pockets. You hear the beat he makes up or whatever he's rapping. And then then I'm possessed. Then I'm gone somewhere else. And I love that feeling. You know what I'm saying? I can't give that up.
Mm-hmm. Jason, why do you play?
I think the reason I have pursued music as much as I have and study is because just every time you open a door, there's another 2 or 3. I mean, or 4 or 5. The aspect of self-discovery And two, the deeper you go into it, the more I think you learn about yourself. And there's been windows of time, or periods of my life when I've been a really serious practicer, and then other times where I'll come home in between album cycles and literally a year will go by and I might clock in 30 hours of practice. But that's not a problem. I'm spending time doing things in other areas, whether it's reading or studying something else. But that in itself is a form of practice because it's helping me sort of rekindle what I have lost on the road. And I can't think of anything else in my life that does that, other than maybe relationships with my family, the people that you love and you share a great history with. But getting that perspective through music has helped me in a lot of other areas of my life, just in general. So it's what music does for me as a whole, as a person. And like I said, that constant discovery of like, wow, there's another level to this. It's deeper. And the fact that, knock on wood, we're a very fortunate band to be able to be 20 years into this and still doing it. And I'd be a fool to ever give that up. That's not to say that I wouldn't continue if Death Cab were done, wouldn't continue making music, but also 33 years in, hitting things with sticks and being able to make a living is pretty good way to go about it. But yeah, it's just part of me, like what all these people are saying. It's something I have to do.
Before we came out here, you were talking about a lesson that you took recently with a rudimental master, a Scottish drummer.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the role that mentors have played in your life, musically?
They've all humbled me. Every time I get with someone there's always somebody that does something better, right? But I think it's the people that, whatever you do in life, if you're a graphic design artist, if you're a mechanic, if you're a basketball player, whatever. If you fail to recognize that you can learn something from other people, you're just going to stop moving in general.
And lots of people are content to just stop.
I don't know many of those people.
Yeah. But that's because that's your choice, right? You choose to surround yourself with those people.
Yeah, and I'm addicted to getting better at things. I just am. Why? It's like,
what does it mean to you to get better at music?
There's physically better and there's mentally better. So mentally better is more what I'm into these days in terms of just being able to sit down and recognize who you are as a player, who you are as a musician, trusting yourself. One of my mentors, one of my teachers from Vancouver, this guy named John Fisher, gave me some pretty universal advice, just about how to get out of your own head. Wouldn't it be great if every time you sat down, that's just who you were? You didn't overthink it at all. And it took a mentor for me to consider that at all. I think that it's really important to have mentors in your. There are kids that go into kindergarten that are having a really hard day, and their teacher might say something that changes the rest of their life. I've witnessed that because my mom was a teacher for 33 years in elementary schools, and I have met Nico Case, who was one of her students, and Nico Case came through Bellingham to play a show, and I brought my mom to the show, and Nico remembered my mom, and Nico remembered her, my mom remembered her, and she dedicated a song to her. And the fact that there was one person that said something to Nico at a time in her life when she needed a mentor and stuck with her, to me, that's true evidence that we need those people to say things to us that change the course of our lives.
Tendai, who mentored you creatively?
My mentor is still alive. He still mentors me now, Taj Mahal.
And how did you meet?
He was friends with my father. And my father wanted me to go with him to LA around maybe 5th grade. and was like, go do the music thing, you know, go be with him. And my mom agreed to it and then showed up to SeaTac and was like, that's not happening. And so ever since then, he's just taken a keen liking to me, and I talk to him about everything. That man he's amazing. Yeah.
How has he kind of changed the way that you thought about music or felt about yourself?
Well, he assured me one thing, that this retirement, like there was a phase even in hip hop where it's like, oh, I'm retiring, and it's like he's like, what are they talking about, retire? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. You don't retire from helping people, from giving these people songs that they need to get by in life. Like, you don't retire, you do it until you drop. And he gave me that perspective that's like, yeah, you're right, you know? And I've just been applying it more and more, you know? And it's different. I mean, with rap, you don't want to be that dude like you're starting to dress like your kids. You know what I'm saying? Or they actually like your music, then you're like, man, I'm watering down. So it's like a thin line. But he tells me lots of stories where he's like, don't worry about that, man. It don't matter. You know what I'm saying? So he gives me a lot of confidence in that. And he has a perspective. He was explaining to me the rap game and when it came in. So he was old enough to see when it was birthed, you know? And he was giving me that example in reference to like blues, how he had different styles of music that he helped break, you know? And these styles of music went on to be something. And he was like, but you don't know that that's happening. Right. You know, until you get older. And he's like, now I'm looking back, reflecting, and I can see all these influences I had, and I'm happy with my life. You know, because I guess he said he was probably frustrated at some point.
In the moment, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I learned so much from him, you know. He loves to talk and
Do you get
teach.
frustrated in the moment when you're creating something in a way that's similar to maybe what he was describing?
The only thing I get frustrated with is that I'm not as good as I want to be. That's it. You know what I'm saying?
What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be good?
I don't really know if I just want to be better. Like, I don't know, you can watch a show and see yourself play and be like, man, I thought I was hot. I was terrible, you know what I'm saying? Like, what was I doing? What was that? Or I need to calm down, or I should play a little lighter, or I should be quieter. The drums don't need to be doing this while he's rapping. Like, I just want to be able to make, you know, it's like athletes. You want to be able to make an instinctive decision, you know, and win a game in a precise moment. That's how I feel when I'm on stage. I want to be able to make a good decision and people go, wow, that was great. How'd you do that? I don't know.
You know what's interesting about what you just said, though? It's more about your own perception of yourself. Like, in the moment, it felt great. Then, in retrospect, you're watching the footage and you feel completely differently. But that's almost more like a battle of the way that you perceive yourself, right? Yeah. I mean, because the people at the show might have had a great time.
I mean, as long as they're happy, it's a good thing. I mean, I'm the guy, I don't even want to see the videos. I don't look at myself in the videos. I don't look at anything because I'm just...
Do you listen to your records?
Yes. Yes.
And how does that... I mean, are you happy with them mostly?
Yes, always. It's like, first of all, I'm working with somebody who's a genius. You know what I'm saying? The hardest thing for me, which he never really realized it, I'm like, dude, man, I know the double album was a great idea, but dude, I gotta learn like 40 raps now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to write my own raps. So that's like, when I say get better, that's something I want to get better at. Being able to be more in tune, being able to be more precise with his cadences and stuff like that. Because I'm drumming at the same time as doing it, so it's kind of hard, but I want to get better at it.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Merge Records, the label that over the last 25 years has been home to many great bands, including The Magnetic Fields, Spoon, and Neutral Milk Hotel. Check out recent releases by Wyoke, Superchunk, Tracy Thorn, Titus Andronicus, and Ott. Listeners of this podcast get 20% off any order by visiting mergerecords.com and using coupon code TRAPSET. As always, domestic shipping is free. Again, go to mergerecords.com and enter TRAPSET at checkout to get 20% off your purchase. Merge Records, home of independent music since 1989. Ruby, can you give me an example of somebody who's served as a mentor in your life and how they've changed how they've changed your life?
Yeah, I can't even count how many music teachers I've had. Just endless, and until I die, just endless. I'll always have a teacher.
Why?
'Cause I'm greedy and I need to know everything.
Is that greed? I mean, they're getting something out of it too, right?
I hope so. A little more besides just the money. No, I'm thinking about all the teachers I've ever had, and I can't name one as a mentor. I think I have trouble really like connecting with people to like give them that title, I think the closest thing I could call a mentor would be my older brother Jack, and he has no knowledge of music he knows endless knowledge about. Let me rephrase. He doesn't know how to play an instrument or any theory or anything. He's a filmmaker, but all of my taste in everything is because of him. He taught me basically what was cool and what wasn't. And like I'd join a band and he'd be like, Ruby, you gotta know, like you can join this band, but you're gonna look dumb doing it. I'd be like, okay, shit, I need to get out of this band. Or like.
So do you still hear his voice in your mind when you're making artistic decisions?
God, I don't want to say yes because I know that he's gonna listen to this. But just.
Okay, so that's a no.
Okay, yeah. Him and my mom just growing up would have endless burn CDs, and like one track would be Eminem and the next would be Willie Nelson. Literally, that was on one mix CD. And just from such an early age, like I didn't even have a choice into like what I liked and didn't like. It'd be like, this is what you like, and this is what you definitely don't like. Okay, Pink Floyd is God. I'm sorry, Leah. And pop punk is the devil. And I'd be like, okay, I guess I agree. And
when do you feel like you were able to break away and kind of make your own decisions about those things?
When he moved away. No, now we actually get in hopefully productive arguments.
Can you give me an example of one that you've had recently? Like, is there a band that he loves that you don't like or something like that?
Let me think. This is the first time I stood up for myself, is when I was 16 and I obsessed over Led Zeppelin. Like, it wasn't even like cute, like, oh, she's into John Bonham. Like, it was just like John Bonham.
And Jack didn't like John Bonham?
Him and my mom maybe they don't hate, but they really dislike Led Zeppelin.
Come on, Jack.
I know, right? So
that must have made it more fun to like them.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys don't even know how good Led Zeppelin is. Like, you guys are dumb. And he'd be like, you don't even know what they appropriated. And I'd be like, I don't even know what that word means.
Right.
And then one day it was so traumatizing. Him and my mom sat me down and pulled up Led Zeppelin lyrics and just
the Lemon song, yeah.
Of course. But they read me the lyrics. I think it was like Good Times, Bad Times, and just read it without any melodic phrasing. They just read it down. Like, Ruby, these lyrics are so dumb. You're getting dumb by listening, because they don't care about musicianship. Like, I think they kind of like live off Kurt Cobain, who is like, I don't give a shit about a Dorian scale. And that's kind of how they view music. Like, and here I am just being like, jazz, jazz, jazz. And they're like, to them it's all about artistic, just like, pretty much just lyrics. Just like, Jack has got me into John Prine, who there's nothing to show off there musically, instrumentally. It's John Prine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see where
you
you're
see
coming
where
from.
I'm talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt, what role have mentors played in your life?
Ooh, well, let's see here. God, I can remember like teachers that stood out in my super early years. But one is sitting in the audience tonight.
That's right.
My first and, well, I guess it was my second, sorry, John. My second drum teacher, but the best. My buddy John Santo here, I took lessons with John when I was 17, 18, I think, like that, something like that. And I guess for me, like, you know, I thought I knew what I thought I, you know, had a lot learned by that point. I was a little bit cocky, 17-year-old, I must say. But you know, it was nice to meet someone who had a completely different approach than I did, and who liked a completely different world of music that I did, and it just exposed me to sort of different, kind of like avant-garde stuff, like Harry Parch ensemble, like John played
with Harry Parch.
So that was the really interesting education. I probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. So yeah, it's nice to meet people like that definitely can take you on a detour of what you think you have figured out.
Like it made you realize that you actually didn't know all that much.
Yeah, and it was nice just to kind of like have conversations too, instead of you know, work on the rudiments and all that kind of stuff. But that was definitely a huge component in me kind of getting the overall picture of things, you know. So I'm glad that happened at a young age for me. And then I don't know, I guess just like you know, like my older siblings had friends with really cool record collections. So I don't know, it wasn't really a mentorship, but it was more like me stealing records and being exposed to stuff I wouldn't have been exposed to on my own. So I think it really is good. I mean, for all of us to try to, you know, just be aware of that when we meet, you know, younger kids that are coming up, and just like, you know, offering as much support as possible, because like a lot of times, like, you know, like Jason was saying, it's just that, you know, that positive reinforcement that can really turn a kid's brain, you know, can flip a switch somehow.
If you were to give a drum lesson to somebody that is maybe similar to 15-year-old Matt Cameron, what would your approach be? What would be important? Like, what would be the lesson that you wanted to teach?
You know, I guess just like, can you groove? You know, can you play a song, basically? I mean, that's kind of the goal for me as a drummer, has always just been, you know, how do you play a tune, basically? So I guess that would be my approach. But, you know, I did take a lesson with Jason once, and he kicked my ass. But it's nice to learn. It's nice for me to like kind of see what. It worked. No, but it was fun to like just kind of get together with guys and like, you know, play rudiments and read and everything. It's fun. Yeah.
Ruby, what would your approach be if you were to teach a drum lesson to somebody right now?
I would agree with Matt. Just focus on a groove. That's what I would tell myself. Learn Dazed and Confused right now. No. Yeah, I feel like when I was a teenager, I was just, and like to this day, kind of, I'm just always trying to prove myself. Like in a room, like play some drums. Okay, brrr, everything I know.
Yeah. Are you trying to prove yourself to other people or to yourself?
Damn. I wasn't ready for that.
Joe goes deep.
Yeah, man. I like it. I feel like to others, I feel like, especially like if there's musicians in the room, maybe that's insecurities of like, I need to prove that like I'm a girl and I can play drums just as good. I don't really know, but I feel like if drummers honed in more on, if they treated groove like they treat licks, there would be so many better drummers, because it's like you can show off every fast fill you can do, but it's like play a D'Angelo tune, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think of drumming as a language, and to me, it's more important to figure out what it is you have to say it, and say it with conviction, rather than like studying a dictionary and increasing your vocabulary all day. I mean, there's a time and a place for that if you find that your current vocabulary is inadequate for what you want to express. But most of the time, you know, the things that are most profound that we can say to other people, I love you, fuck you, it only takes a few words.
That's and pretty I think much all
musically, the same concept can apply. I mean, you can sit all of you down to play the same groove, and it will sound different because each of you has a different voice, and the more you embrace that voice, the more powerful it can become. And that's my opinion. Tendai, if you were to teach a music lesson, what would your approach be?
I'm going to be very honest. I'm not good at taking lessons or giving them. But
why do you think that is?
I just was born in it. You know, I never was taught one thing. I never had one lesson. I was just always doing it. That's why.
I mean, again, with the language analogy, you were brought up with that.
Right.
Music was a language that you learned. It's not like our parents teach us the English language by sitting us down and giving us lessons. You just learn it by absorbing it, right?
Yes. I'll say this.
But if somebody were to come to you and say like, I want to learn how to play music, like what?
Someone is with me. He's my son.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching him in my own way. But it's
how would your way of teaching your son differ from the way that you learned from your father? Like, have you made conscious choices about?
Yes, I have. I mean, let's start with the talking drum. Like, I've taught him how to hold it, how to, make it tune. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't give him a structured. That's just not how I was raised. I wouldn't give him a structured if you learn this, then this makes you at this level. Because in our culture, we don't have that. You see a lot of people misinterpret this person's a master drummer or a master and beta player. I'm like, what are they talking about? Well, I don't know what that means. Either you play it or you don't play it. So the teaching part, I'm going to do my best, man. I'm going to try to teach them, but I learn by just watching. If I watch anybody play, I feel like I can mimic what they're doing and I learn something from it, It's very tough for me. I don't think I could. I'm a bad teacher. I mean, my kids tell me that all the time. You didn't teach me nothing. I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? I can't teach someone how to play the mbita, but I can give tips though. Do
you think that breaking it down into discrete lessons is almost counter to the spirit of the way that you approach music?
Yes, I do. I'm very spiritual when it comes to who I play with. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm sharing my soul when I do that. You know what I'm saying? So It's got to be the right person. It has to be right. And maybe it's because I'm probably scarred by a lot of things that have happened in African music. A lot of conversations from Taj Mahal to Hugh Masekela to my father, them getting, having their beer sessions and talking about Paul Simon, anyone, you know what I'm saying? And look what they did to the music and look how this sounds, and them being asked to also water down their music to be successful for quote unquote world music. You know what I'm saying?
So you're talking about cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about music is that it can, at its best, bring cultures together. So where would you draw the line between what we're calling appropriation and then an appropriate level of sharing cultures? I mean, to a certain extent, all music influences all other music, right?
Well, yes.
So where would you draw the line? At Graceland?
I'm coming. I think that because of, it's like anything else. I was just raised a certain way. I'm kind of getting rid of that. You see what I'm saying?
You're saying you're getting rid of the way you were raised and evaluating your principles on your own?
Yes. I'm just having to have those tough conversations. Is that the right approach? And that's not the right approach. I'm looking more at a love approach towards it, and that's why Taj has been big, because he says mistakes to me that he's made. And that's a tough thing for someone to say who's a friggin' legend. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I made a mistake when I signed here. Or I worked with this guy, or when I said no to this artist. Oh, okay, and it's opened me up. So, the teaching thing, to go back to that, I can't get over it yet, because I still have to get rid of my approach on it. Like you said, you know what I'm saying? I got to get rid of that before I can teach someone. Because teaching someone the mbita is deep.
Yeah.
It's not. There was places that people wouldn't play with me because they didn't even know who I was, and my accent was American. You know, when I was in Zimbabwe, there were people that were like, "Nah, we can't play with you." You know what I'm saying? So when you're raised on that thought process, you're really like, I can't just do that. There's a guy I really respect in Seattle. He's a drummer. His name's Chon Gio. He comes from one of the baddest Senegalese families. You know what I'm saying? It took 2 years for this guy to play with me. You know what I'm saying? I was like, why wouldn't you play? He was like, but you're already good. But I was like, no, I want to play with you. And then once we played, and he explained to me, you know, it's hip hop. I have to make sure that what you're doing is respectful to my culture and my religion. I was like, okay, that's all you had to say. So it's like, once it's embedded in you, it's something you got to break, you know what I'm saying, before you can even see down that road. So I'm working on it.
I mean, do you think that commercially available music and, you know, like native and spiritual music are necessarily mutually exclusive? Like, I mean, do you feel like the feeling that you get when you're making music with Shabazz Palaces, for example, is that feeling distinct from if you're playing with your family?
No, not for me. For me, it's all the same, you know. Like, just, it's a personal thing for me. I listen to everything. People would be surprised, like, oh, what are you listening to? Gucci Mane. You know what I'm saying? I'm listening to Migos, you know what I'm saying? Like, I listen to anything. I listen to everything, you know what I'm saying? I understand the commercial part of it, you know, but I don't work with people that are doing it to be famous.
Right.
And that's just my approach when it comes to that. I don't know where to draw the line on that. That's for the individual to do for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
And if they feel good with it, then do it, you know?
So it sounds like you're kind of becoming less judgmental as you grow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to grow up, you know? And it's hip hop. Like, it's hard to understand when you grow up with hip hop. There were rules, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't wear the same shoes he has on and think that's fresh. It was individuality. It was your own individual style. You couldn't come into a breakdance circle and start breaking and then take this guy's move. You know what I'm saying? Now in hip hop, it's the same song and the same thing. Yeah. And I had to grow and say, okay, this is just what it is. This is like a 7A and Congolese guitar playing where they know how to hit this groove and stay in it. And it became, one person obviously did it, but it became a style of music. So I just had to let it go and don't let the music pass you by, you know? Yeah. That's what I learned. I learned that from a lot of mentors.
Jason, what's your approach to teaching? How would you characterize your teaching style?
By listening to not only the people around me, like the mentors and the other players, but students. I mean, I just took a lesson from Tendai right now. To borrow a term from a friend of mine named Dave Elich, who's a really good drummer and teacher in LA, a great player. I love this subject. You and I have already talked about this, but we all have blind spots in the same way that when we hear our voice on an answering machine for the first time, it's like, that's
what's an
not
answering
me.
machine, man?
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah, I mean, sometimes you look in the mirror, sometimes you hear your voice. Like, we don't have the perspective of other people around us, right? So yeah. That's what teachers are for. But for me, I compartmentalize it like boxing. You're like, you have a student. They're there for a half hour. They're there for an hour. They're there for 2 hours, depending on how long you guys or gals want to hang. And to me, it's like a board game where you're looking at it in terms of strategy as a teacher to help a person find their blind spot in the most encouraging way versus a discouraging way. Because the worst thing I could do as a teacher, and I have students in this room as I'm looking around, every time they came in for a lesson, my number one goal and job was to make sure they left inspired and not feeling like they didn't want to come back next week. I wanted them to come back as soon as they got in the car. Like, for me, it's always inspiring to see the light go off and turn on, whether that's a mental light, a physical light, but those blind spots, we all have them, they're everywhere. So sometimes you gotta be with a student for a while. Sometimes it's like a Good Will Hunting episode. You gotta spend 6 months with somebody before there's an aha moment. But if I was to teach a lesson, or whenever I do teach a lesson, for me, regardless of age, ability, or anything, it's to make sure that there's just a permagrin on their face. Like, I want kids who've never played to leave being able to play something. So I don't even necessarily pull curriculum from books or exercises, because each person that walks in the room is going to have different abilities. And some people really want a challenge and a kick in the ass, and other people, you could tell that they just would rather not even be there. So to me, that strategy is like, how can I get these people to leave really wanting to come back immediately? And to me, that is, like I said, like when Tendai, when you were saying, like, it's hard for you to want to call yourself a teacher or to convey information when you yourself are still trying to figure out how it is what you want your curriculum to be or how you want to come across. And I think that the reason I've always taught is to be a better student myself. So, like I said, the goal is to just make sure that no matter what it is, if it's the simplest beat. I mean, it's funny, I used to think about when I taught at the Seattle Drum School, whether the studied drummers on each side of my room were listening in to what I was teaching, because I wasn't teaching from a method book necessarily. Yet, I had one of the largest student loads, because I think that I inspired a lot of kids and teenagers and, even adults that just were getting, in their mind, real results from what they were doing. And that all stems from, like I said, the approach of, like, no matter who you spend time with, make sure you make them feel good about themselves and that they're making progress.
So when Matt says that you kicked his ass, what does that mean? What was your approach? What was your mindset?
Do you remember it? I do.
Well, I was exposed to the whole system. It's like good teachers have a system of the way they lay it out, like what you do first, second, third, fourth. You know what I mean? And Jason's a super organized guy, man. And so it was. I think the end of the lesson, it was some like Scottish drum thing that I definitely needed about a week to master. But then we also did something together for the
we did the independence exercise.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean?
Steve Smith, who started the Seattle Drum School, who was my first real mentor. I met him when I was 19 years old. He had a really great curriculum that involved singing and playing.
Yes.
So a lot of drummers can sit down and play, but very few can sing what they're playing.
Right.
So Steve had this very elaborate system, and I know that some of you in this room have done this, probably too much. Very elaborate system of all four limbs playing different patterns or even time signatures while you're singing against those limbs. And you have to sing and hone in on what each limb is doing and move from limb to limb without changing your focus, which to me, that just relates to, like, if you're playing time and a fill's coming up or a chorus change or a verse or whatever, a bridge. So many times we get stuck in our heads about, I'm about to take this big leap. There's a change coming, anxiety, I'm going to rush, I'm going to blow it. So the idea with Steve's system was to get you so focused on having to be focused, to keep track of what your body's doing, that you could have a conversation with somebody while you're playing whatever you want. So one of the things I gave Matt was probably I'm just going to give him the hardest exercise just so I make myself look good.
And thank you for demonstrating that exercise.
And that's what we did. But I hope that what I conveyed was kept within the hour or 2 hour time frame to make you feel good about yourself. No. Matt didn't need to be there. Total disclaimer.
It's always good to learn. But yeah,
Jason, can you play Jesus Christ pose?
I still don't know how Matt plays Jesus Christ pose.
Well, it's good when, like, someone like Jason or a really good teacher can sort of demonstrate it for the students, that sort of impossible thing that they're trying to explain. So that's definitely the sign of a good teacher. And yeah, I don't have that natural ability to teach as well. So I think it's nice when we fellow drummers can do that, as well as keep a band going and everything like that. So
yeah, that's a whole nother lesson, right?
Oh yeah. Whole other conversation.
In a moment, I think we should open it up to questions from you good folks in the audience. I have one final question for the panelists. We'll start with you, Matt. Can you give me an example, and it can be a current example, of a challenge that you've confronted creatively, and how you've kind of approached it?
Well, let's see. I guess, like, for me, it's like my favorite thing to do is just to kind of stay in the creative realm. It's like my gig is such that it requires, just a lot of preparation to get ready to go play live. So I guess like what I've been really trying to do is, not make any excuses and try to get myself into that zone where I am creating and writing. And I guess for me, it's mostly trying to write my own music, write my own songs. With instruments I wouldn't kind of necessarily go to first. Like I go to the guitar first. So now I'm trying to use more keyboards and things like that. So
is that's
a current challenge?
Is that to stay in touch with a sense of vulnerability? Is that why it's hard?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess I like ideas when they're kind of rough and they're not really well thought out. Like sometimes that leads to better overall ideas. So sometimes when you approach the way you're going to initially hit that idea in a way that might not be as precise or whatever, then maybe that can lead to some
right, because
other
then you
spot.
have to get down to like what's really the core of the idea I'm trying to express. That makes sense. What about you, Ruby? What's a creative challenge that you're facing right now?
Oh man, how much time do we have? So many. I think right now,
which one do you think about the most?
Staying sincere, I think more than anything. Staying sincere and having time to think about it. I think that I'm the type of person that will pursue like 10 projects at a time, and having the end goal of a presentation. And I think what I've been trying to do lately is just really hone in on one idea and not think about presenting it to anyone, and just having this hopefully original, sincere idea and having it only be mine. So having said that, I will spend time just like with the lights off, just improvising, and then recording the improvised section, and then picking out pieces that I can identify with the most, and like
you turn the lights off.
Like literally, like I turn the lights off.
You're like no more sensory stimulus, just
pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just me and the drums. I will often not use any sticks, just to like really just try and hone in on like my body to the instrument, and then really just try and grab onto something that I can't identify as anything else. I think that's just a human trait too, is just trying to be original and not inspired, which is impossible to not be inspired by anything. But I think more than anything is just not think about, because I'm such a performer and I hate it. I just like really have to focus on, okay, this is my idea, this is my concept, and I don't want to think about a presentation, because as soon as I think about a presentation, the whole thing gets skewed. As soon as I think about, okay, well, I'll have this presentation at this certain gig, so I know that person will be there, and that person's going to think this.
You mean the way that you're presenting it to others?
Yes. Just
because
anybody else.
Do you think that dilutes your vision somehow?
I don't think it dilutes
part of it.
I think it's definitely part of it. I will never be able to perform and not think about the audience. I don't think anyone can do that, really.
Yeah.
And I get argued a lot that people just like, no, man, this is for me, and it totally is, but
music is also designed to connect people, right? I mean,
especially drums more than anything.
Yeah.
So I don't think it dilutes it. I think it just, you think about something completely differently when you know that you're going to be sharing it with somebody. And then I'm a people pleaser, so I want to think about pleasing people when I'm performing. I mean, also like fucking it up, but like, you know what I mean? Just making them a part of what I'm creating. So I guess in short, I'm trying to think more personally.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything.
And I think that's good to sort of like keep some of those ideas to yourself. Like the very fact that you are going to present them to someone or an audience or something, I think, it's good to follow those instincts of like not giving it all up, like sometimes it's fun to just draw strength from that thing that's personally yours, but
Yeah, some of the most kind of spiritual moments I've had in my life were just me sitting and playing music by myself, or even listening to music or thinking about music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely don't subscribe to the theory that once you start bringing other people into the picture, that it dilutes it. I mean, it's just a different version of it, you know, different parts of yourself. Tendai, what's a challenge that you're facing right now?
Trying to do less, you know. I'm always in a race with myself because I'm so busy doing so much stuff that, as Ruby was saying, like I need to learn to just focus more on one thing. Like if it's gonna be the show, focus on the show and perfect that, and take 90 days with that. Like me, I'll be like, I can do the show for an hour, I can go write this rap, produce this, get on the phone, do the daddy thing. It's like just really honing in on one thing. Without losing, I also think that that's a power of mine. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes me capable of getting on stage and doing like so many things. You know what I'm saying? So trying to do that and perfect it, you know?
What do you mean by perfect?
Get it to where I'm happy, you know? Like a lot of times, I'm pretty sure everybody's using like looper pedals and stuff. Like I don't read the manual. Mm-hmm. I open up the box, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, it should work like this. So I'll be in the show like, oh, well, it's not working. And people are like, that was genius. I'm like, no, that was a mistake. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Getting out of that and really doing something purposely, or reading the manual or something, you know what I'm saying? Like taking time to read the manual, you know? Don't just get Ableton and just start using it, you know what I'm saying? Actually read it. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to get better at that.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for just jumping in, too. And if something is designed well, it should be intuitive to a musician.
Yeah, but then when you're with your bandmates and they're like, do you know how to do this? Or this isn't, and I'm like, I didn't read the manual, and, you know, it just makes it a little tough. So, I mean, but it's cool, you know. I just want to get better at that. I want to be more organized. He's obviously organized. I'm not organized. You know what I'm saying? So I just kind of do things spur of the moment, very instinctively. I just want to accomplish so much in life that I think it affects me musically. And if I just calm down and be like, just do this first, I think it could be a little better.
Yeah, it's hard to know like when to draw that line, because you only live once, so it's nice to have this range of experiences, right, and to take opportunities as they come your way, and then learning when to say no, or learning when to say later. Right. I'll do that later. Right now, I'm going to focus on something. I
say no a lot. That's very easy for me.
Oh, good.
I can say no a lot.
Well, I'm glad you said yes to doing this.
I'm glad I did. You know, this has been fun. It's hard to say no to KEXP. Come on. You can't say no to them. You guys are too good.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Colectivo Coffee. Handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at colectivo.com.
Jason, what's a musical challenge you're facing right now? Or a creative challenge?
Maybe both, musical and creative. So anyone that is in a band that tours will totally understand what I'm talking about. But being at home, especially if you have a family, is like one of you, and being on tour is another side of you. It's like a whole nother life. And you could make the same analogy of if you just want to play in a band on the weekend, and then you have a super stressful job that you go to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, or you got to go out of town on a work retreat, whatever. Going back and forth, negotiating those two worlds, and being fully present and focused for each world is a crazy challenge. And no matter who you have a relationship with, but especially yourself. So something I learned was that I just had to kind of be cool and not try and make up for lost time, or, you know, basically I just had to get in line. I had to just hop on the train and know the train was moving, whether that was the tour train or the home train. It's like I have to show up for a band practice, you know, and have a 5 days straight of 6 hours a day rehearsing, and then get on a plane and be in 8 countries in 10 days, and sleep very little, and then I got to come home and like take a kid to a baseball practice, and I got to be fully present for that. So
it's not like, hey, Daddy's home.
No,
now you kids can eat
cookies
for breakfast, and I got you a PlayStation.
No. You can't be Disneyland dad, because you wreck everything that someone else has been taking care of at home. But what I need to be, my challenge, my creative challenge, is to make sure that I take care of myself in both of those situations. So when I come home, I need to like.
What do you mean by that? Like, do you have a propensity for like neglecting yourself?
Yeah, big time. So I don't. I end up like who's ever in front of me is the most important thing at that time. If it's just one-on-one, or if it's one-on-two or three, it's like, oh, you are more important to me than myself right now. So in any situation that I get into, whether it's a band situation where it's like band practice is more important than me, making sure that I play my parts right for the singer and the bass player, the guitar player and the producer and the engineer, making a record, everyone else making sure that they're happy and satisfied is like paramount. So it's the same at home as it is like when I'm working on the road, which is a problem, which is why it is a creative problem for me to like figure out how to give myself more of what I need so that I can be just healthier, just happier in general when I come into a situation when I need to be fully present and not like all caught up about like trying to satisfy everyone else in the room.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme that has run through this show. When I talk to drummers, I think drummers are inherently kind of nurturing people. I mean, lots of the time they're there to help facilitate somebody else's vision or somebody else's dream. And sometimes to a fault. I mean, sometimes they put themselves last and it fucks up their life.
It can, and there are plenty of examples of like just a hurricane trail of like relationships with drummer, like your conversation with Steve Ferroni and listening to his whole backstory. Yeah. But maybe that's the opposite. Maybe he's done so much of taking care of himself that he's transcended take care of his
now,
family.
But yes,
true.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, drummers, we're the ones with practice spaces. We're the ones with the vehicles. We're the ones that take care of everybody. We're the ones that are driving most of the time,
Well, here's the funny thing about Steve Ferroni is...
Except for Ruby.
For those of you who don't know who Steve Ferroni is, he was the second drummer and probably the longest tenured drummer in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. But before that, he played with a variety of incredible artists, ranging from Eric Clapton to Shaka Khan, and
AWB, man.
Band.
Yeah, Average White Band. And he was he told me about the phase in his life when he was kind of aimless and was just having children all over the place. and then he told me about how he got sober and he took responsibility for his life and got it together. And then he said, well, if you think I'm bad, there's this one guy that's worse than me, Chad from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He has even more illegitimate children than me. So then like the next week or something, I heard from somebody in the Red Hot Chili Peppers camp, oh, Chad wants to talk to you. And the first thing he said is, I was so excited that one of my heroes talked about me and name dropped me, and then I found out that it was that I was more of a disaster than he was. But he actually figured it out too, and so I think we're going to open it up to you folks. Okay, here we go.
I have a question for Matt, because Pearl Jam is my favorite band, and what I love about you guys is that you have such a huge catalog of 10 albums, and you always play different songs, totally random different songs.
Soon to be 11.
From
Continue.
every night. Oh my God. And I'm wondering what the process is of like, okay, guys, tonight we're just going to play all of No Code. Cool, let's just relearn In My Tree and Smile again to just play one day. How's that go?
Yeah, it's almost impossible to come to the gig late because there's always like five tunes we have to go over and relearn. But yeah, the set list in Pearl Jam that's Eddie's baby. Eddie gets there early. He gets a history about how many times we played there. a lot of times we've met people over the years in different cities. So he tries to include certain facets of our history there, the city's history, how many times we played a certain song there. So he goes really deep. And other times in the middle of a tour, he'll just give me or Stone the notebooks. Like I got nothing, you do the set list tonight. But there's it's fun for us to not do the same set. I mean, there's certain spots of the set that we have to hit every show, obviously. But it's fun for us as musicians to try to remember all the tunes.
Do you always?
I don't always remember them all.
Do you play Jeremy every time?
Yeah, we got to play J-Dog. We got to play Alive. For sure. There's a lot of the first album you got to play. Yeah. I mean, and I'm always the one that's like, let's play once. It's like. So yeah, it's fun playing those tunes.
Ma'am.
Hi. I'm a fourth-year student at the Seattle Drum School of Music, and
what's your name?
I'm Lynn, and my teacher is Davis Martin, and I'm pretty sure each week I get to play on Jason's old drum kit, which is really nice.
Which one?
It's in Davis's room, and it's pretty
what color is it?
Beat up yellowy maple. Okay, ring a bell. No.
Yeah, I've had a lot of too many drum sets.
All right. So actually, I've had the privilege of seeing every single one of you guys play, but Ruby and Tendai, I've seen you play outdoors. And my question is, I remember outdoor concerts so much more for some reason, everybody has a favorite concert. What are some of the memories for outdoor concerts that make it great for you guys from the other side of the stage? That's my question.
For me, Bumper Shoot used to have this thing called bumper drum. And I got to playing bumper drum. And I was like 9 years old. And I just remember that was the first time I was ever in front of that many people. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this. So, I mean, that was, as a child, to be honest, there's nothing like we don't have the privilege like you guys of being on at 10 o'clock at night, but we're usually there when sun sets. But to me, one of the best places to play is here, Sasquatch. Like, when you, just to walk on there and you see the river and the whole view, it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? So that's like one of my favorite to do.
That's a beautiful amphitheater to play, man. Yeah, and that sweet spot around 7:38, like when you're going on in the the background, yeah, that's killer.
You see the sunset at the gorge, and you watch the line go up the crowd like this, just up the hill. It's nuts. Red Rocks is a pretty amazing venue, especially when the night's just right. I mean, when the weather's just right. We played in plenty of downpours because we're the band from Seattle. That's what everyone jokes about. But wherever you're at, whatever country or place in the U.S., when the air is right, personally, I've given a choice between seeing an indoor show or being outside and seeing a really mesmerizing show. I would always choose outside as an audience perspective, But there are some beautiful indoor venues too.
Yeah, I think that music belongs outside. Whenever I have the power to make the decision if we're going to play outside or inside, I always choose outside. Not everyone listens to music. It's weird to accept that, but that seems to be reality. Every weekend I go out on Capitol Hill and bucket drum, and it brings the craziest crowd that I've ever seen. It's just like swarms of people who I know that I would never talk to just by the way it's like Capitol Hill on Saturday night. It's kind of like the worst crowd. But it brings all these people together that would never talk to each other, and everyone's dancing. I think that music, like we were kind of talking about earlier, is this is so gay, but it's the universal language, just by all means.
Hello.
Hi. First, thank y'all all for taking time to speak with us tonight, because
Thanks for being here.
it's an amazing opportunity. Jason, there's a few of us over there that completely empathize with the Steve Smith story, so. But my question's for Ruby. So I'm a adult woman, 2 years into drumming, and so what's your advice for us women and girls that are getting into drumming and we face the getting dismissed and are you a drummer, those scenarios?
Man, that's a great question. Someone asked Carrie Brownstein in the 90s, what's it like being a woman playing music? And she answered, getting asked questions like that. So if anyone talks about your gender before you're playing, they're not worth it. Just like straight up. I mean, some of the greatest projects, like Thunderpussy, is all female, and that's the way it has to be, and that's for an empowering purpose. If I've got endless gigs throughout my life that I'm still getting emails for today, like, need a chick drummer, hit us up. No, you suck, I hate you. Just don't ever think that being a woman playing drums should make anyone treat you differently, because they will, and it's gonna happen. And just know that whenever you're on a stage, that you belong to be there, and that whenever you're behind a kit, you are a drummer. And what was your name?
I'm Carrie.
You're fucking Carrie playing drums.
Thank you.
Thank you, fucking Carrie.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I brought my son Devin, who's 11 years old, here with me tonight, and he's takes drum lessons. So I was kind of looking for just some advice that you would give to an 11-year-old boy that aspires to be a drum player when he grows up.
What's your name?
My name is Heather. This is my son Devin.
Devin? You're fucking Devin playing drums. But maybe the drummer of Soundgarden and Pearl Jam would like to chime in. Devin.
Well, Devin, do you love playing drums?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if for me, it's just always like taking that inner love for what you do and turning that into confidence. I think once that happens, then stuff will click. So I think it's a matter of just getting younger players to a spot where they can feel confident about what they're doing. Because when you're first learning everything, it's like, how do I do it? So just keep at it, bro. And if you love it, it's all that matters, man.
Anybody else?
My husband and I have had the privilege of hearing Thunderpussy perform in a lot of very small venues. And that's just a remarkable experience. It's incredibly intimate. So I'm wondering, for the guys who are in the bigger bands and have, very famous and working all these larger venues, do you miss that intimacy of the smaller venues, or are there any opportunities for you to experience that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like those are the most memorable times, when I first started playing in bands. So I think as a player, for me, it's like your performance changes when you're in a smaller room as opposed to if you're in a medium or bigger size room. So I always like the control factor of a smaller room, like just being able to control your sound more. As a drummer, that's kind of everything. But luckily for Jason and I, we've been able to kind of get to that next level where we can play bigger stages. But in those cases, a lot of times we have to rely on the monitor system, and because we can't really hear what's going on around us. So it's just a matter of adapting to the different size and the different parameters of how you're going to be able to perform. But I still, I could set up right here and I'd have a great time playing,
All right.
So yeah.
Do we have drums?
But you know what I mean? It's like, I still love playing in small spots for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, every time, we still, when we tour internationally, we're not playing the same size venues in, Manila as we would play in Seattle or LA or New York. And I think everyone in Death Cab gets pretty excited when the venue becomes intimate once again, because it's like a throwback to like the first time we played the Crocodile in Seattle.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, oh, we got to do really good so that we can like make it to the next level. Like there's a lot more intensity. Like I have a harder time playing in front of a room full of 20 people than I do, 20,000. Like it's a whole different mindset. And like Matt said, the dynamic range is like truly great when you're not relying on a giant PA and a bad monitor mix or whatever to just screw everything up. When you're just using your true ears to listen to your true instrument, you play different. You think a lot different. And I think that translates to a really passionate performance. And that's why a lot of bands, I think, that's the reason we start why we start. You start at an embryonic stage when you really are feeling everything, like right in front of your face, right here. And unfortunately, some bands get so big that they lose touch with that. So I think it is really important that no matter if you find yourself playing at a massive level, that you need to come back to those stages and those spaces, both mentally and physically, so you can remember where you came from and how you started playing.
So Matt, when are those intimate solo shows going to happen?
Oof.
Cave Dweller live.
Is that going to happen?
Probably never. Well, I had this one band called Wellwater Conspiracy, and
great
goal was to do one televised performance.
And I saw it. It was on David Letterman.
So I have very goofy goals with my bands. Me and Mark Giuliano are planning a two-date stint at the Mercury Lounge in New York City. So and then we'll break up with the band.
Nothing in your hometown?
2 shows and then we break up.
Come on, hometown.
That's a tall order for me to get on stage with a solo thing right now, but I'd love to do it. Yeah, why not?
I don't know why not, Matt.
Because I'm not ready, Joe.
That's the perfect time when you're not ready. That's when it's exciting. I want to thank our fantastic panel. I want to thank everybody at KEXP. Yeah. Jackson, Tilly, McKenna. I want to thank my friend Fiona, who helped facilitate this, and my co-producer Chris. And let's hear it for Matt Cameron, Ruby Dunphy, Tendai Maraire, and Jason McGerr. Thank you, folks. The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.